Welcome back, YouTube, to Manny's School of Art. Last week we took a look at the element of line and some of its characteristics and some of the things that we can do with that very basic element. And at the end of the video we did an abstract design just to get you used to working with all kinds of different types of line. To check out that video, click on the link above to learn more about the element of line. Let's go ahead and get started with the main lesson today. Remember that the purpose of this lesson is to give you some additional practice working with the element of line. Make sure that when you practice, you try to create some good habits when you practice. There's an old adage that says practice makes perfect. I would say that's not entirely true. Practice makes permanent. So when you're practicing, you got to make sure that you practice the skills properly. If you start repeating the same mistakes over and over again, what you're actually doing is you're ingraining bad habits. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, but if you make mistakes, try to take the time to fix them so that you don't make the same mistakes over and over again. All right, having said that, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started with a couple of warm-up exercises. So for warm-up, I'm going to be doing two very similar images, and I'm going to try to do it using only lines. And for this exercise, I'm just using a marker. You can do it in pen or you can do it in pencil or marker. Doesn't matter. And what you want to try to do here is just loosen up. So it's going to be representational. So it's going to look like it represents an image. It's not going to be abstract like last week. Alright, now that we've had a chance to warm up a little bit, let's go ahead and start on our first drawing. And when you're doing these, do them relatively small because they're just practice. Just make sure that you're practicing what you want to do. So we're going to do a little bamboo. I'm just going to do a single one, and I'm going to do it in pencil as well as in ink. So I can start off by drawing the bamboo. Oops, I messed up already. This kind of comes in just a little bit, and then it comes in underneath, like so. And that's enough there. So this area right here is solid, and this area right here is hollow inside. And then for the stems, this is where they come from here. So they're not going to grow from here. So when you do this, think of the weight of the line. So here, the line is thick here, and then it gets thinner as it goes out. And the same thing when you are doing the bamboo leaves. Think of the weight of the line. So if you're doing this with pencil or a marker, I'm going to show you that with a marker, you're going to have to do it by drawing the outlines and then filling them in. So I'm going to speed through this part right here so that you can actually see what they look like once they've been filled in. Alright, so let's say that the light source is over here, then I can suggest a little bit of shadow just by changing the weight of the line. Still playing with the weight of the line. So where the stem goes into this piece right here, that's thick, and then as it comes out, it gets thinner. And then for the leaves, still playing with the weight of the line, you want to have a variant. So it's going to be skinny and thick, and then skinny again. To make it look like it's a line, you have to fill them in. If you're doing this with a marker, I'll just do a little one here. Basically you draw the image just like we did with a pencil, and then you have to go back in and change the weight of the lines and fill them in. So I'm just going to do a little one here, and then when you do the leaves, fill them in to make them look like a solid line, like a variant line. Now if you are doing this with a brush, I'll move this over here, ink and brush, then try to do the same thing, but do it by varying the line, the weight of the line, and keep my hand out the way. So you're going to have a thin line here, press a little bit harder to create the thickness of the line. And then on this side, I'm going to change the light source. I'm going to make this side the light side. Notice that I'm actually leaving some areas broken to indicate that those areas are in highlight. And then I'm going to start with a strong pressure here. As I go away, I'm just going to soften up the pressure to make it thinner. And I'm going to do the same thing with the leaves. So I'm going to start off thin, thick, thin, thin, thick, thin. I'm going to go and reload. And every time I reload, I reshape the brush. Thin, thick, thin. Alright, now let's go ahead and try one that's a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. And this time we're going to try to suggest some texture. So we're going to be drawing a little eagle. I have a reference photo in front of me, and that's what we're going to start with. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and turn this into a line drawing. Remember that a line drawing is just that. You're going to focus on the lines. You're not going to be doing any shading or colors. However, we're going to use line to suggest some of the different types of textures that we see. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to make the eye. There's a little catch light here, so we're going to leave that open. Then here on this outer part, it's a thicker, the weight of this line is thicker. Now in this part here, I'm not just going to outline here because those are feathers, really fine feathers. There's a little bit of texture there, so instead of just creating a solid line, I'm actually going to suggest the movement of these really fine feathers. When I look at the top of his head, this is all feathers also. So again, I'm not going to make a smooth line. Instead, I'm going to suggest the bumps that are created with the feathers, or from the feathers. Alright, let's try another one. This time I'm going to do a little sea turtle. That way we can use lines to create patterns. So again, I'm going to start it off with the pencil, just to get a very light idea of where everything's going to go. So now let's transform this into a line drawing, and then just like on this one, we're going to erase the pencil lines once we're done. Now we can actually start working on the patterns. Now I'm going to lay out the pattern in pencil first, and then go back and make them permanent. So when we look at the head, and this is a little bit too far forward, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Or excuse me, too far back. We have these patterns like this in this area right here. So, and I'm not going to do like the entire thing, but I wanted to show you that in this case we're using lines not only for the drawing part but also to create the patterns. And then for the shell, you got to break it up into two sections. We have this part right here where the shell and the stomach are connecting, or the lower part of the shell. And then we have the patterns on the shell itself. We did say that the light source was going to be coming from the top, so I want to go ahead and change the weight of the lines down here to make them look thicker. And I'm doing a little bit of variation, so I'm not going to make them all the same thickness, but I want to make the lower ones thicker because they're on the shadow side of the turtle. So remember that when you do lines, yes, you're going to be working with shapes, and yes, you're going to be doing textures and stuff, but the idea is to do it all with just lines. Even if you decide to do some shadow work, you want to do it through the use of lines. Think coloring book, right? When you see a coloring book, all of those drawings are line drawings, and you look at them and you're like, well, some of the lines are thick, some of the lines are thin, some lines were used to create patterns, some are for textures, but it's all line work. But you get the idea, I hope. When you're doing line work, you're trying to create everything with just the use of lines. Different types of lines to create different effects, but just lines. Alright, on this next one we're going to do a little covered bridge. And just do a little one right here. And really what I want to show you is when you're working with dimension and you're doing lines, patterns with lines, you have to change the lines in the direction of, well, the image you're drawing. This is why I like to do my initial sketch in pencil, just in case I make a mistake. I'm going to let the roof kind of slide behind the turtle. So I like my little turtle, so I don't want to mess it up too much. When I'm doing the line work on this, there's a lot of straight lines here. I'm not going to use a ruler, but these are a little bit more geometrical than the stuff that we've been working with. So I'm going to be doing wood patterns here, or planks, and the big thing is that when you do the planks on this side here, you're going to be going in this direction, this angle here. But when you get to the front, you got to change directions and go this way. And when you get to the top part, you're actually going up and down. So again, just working with lines. Now when I get here, change the direction, right? Because this one is in perspective. So I have to think of the lines as being 3D. These lines here are vertical, so they stay up and down. The point is, whatever you're doing, your patterns, your textures and stuff, when you're working with lines, you really got to think about doing everything with lines. And if that means changing the weight of the line, then you change the weight of the line. If that means using lines to create patterns, then you create patterns, and so forth and so on. So when you're practicing, practice doing things that you enjoy. So I'm a nature and wildlife artist, so I love working with animals and I love working with landscapes and stuff. But you know, you can draw people, you can draw cartoons, you can draw cards, whatever it is. But practice, for this particular exercise, practice working with lines. So I'm going to leave you with a fun one. So let me switch papers. So as I leave you with this little drawing of Charlie Brown, I hope that you take the opportunity to practice working and doing just line drawings to kind of get you used to simplifying everything. What do things look like in their simplest form, with just lines, with no colors, no shadows. use lines to create patterns and to suggest shadows through the different weights, but we're not actually going to, for this, when you're working with lines, you're not actually doing any type of shading or any type of coloring. All you're doing is you're using lines to create weights, patterns, and textures. And it's actually a really good way to get you to just look at everything in a simple way. To simplify things. So I hope you give this a try. But practice, just practice. Practice makes permanent. So when you practice, make sure that you practice with a purpose. It's okay to make mistakes. So when you make a mistake, take the time to work through it. Figure out what you did wrong and how to fix it. Really start building up some good habits. Alright, hope you liked this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.